Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Empower716, the podcast show dedicated for entrepreneurs, business owners, side hustlers, and career shifters that are committed to growing their life and business. This is episode number 24. We are back in the map. So I just excited to have in the building a man who has a tremendous reputation out in the community and goes by the name of Shomari James. Welcome to the show, man.
Thank you. Appreciate you having me. I'm honored.
I'm glad to have you in the building. I heard so many things about you, what you do. Absolutely. Definitely making a way. Not only we'll talk about where you are located out in Maryland, but you still have obviously a foundation in Buffalo. You continuously come back to Buffalo and do some great things. And so we're going to get into that all in your business to the next half hour or so. If you are listening on our podcast, through the audio podcast, make sure you share this, like this, get us out, help us get this value, and encouraging other entrepreneurs and business owners that's in this industry. We need to support, and that's what Empower716 is all about. So Shomari, the first question I like to ask all of my guests is kind of like, how do you define who Shomari James is?
Ooh, that's a really good question. I would say Shomari Akil James is bimodal, probably multifactorial of a person because first off, I'm a God-fearing man.
Yeah.
I am a son. I am a husband. I am a father of two beautiful children, 17-year-old baby girl, 21-year-old boy who literally just got his license, but that's cool.
That's dope.
He got a little slow to it, but that's all right.
Hey.
And one that just ultimately, my entire life, I believe in the positive progression of the culture.
Yeah.
I didn't really know what that meant or how that breathed life through me until I got a little older and found my purpose. So when you find a higher power, because I'm not going to tell you what God to believe in or who to pray to, but when you identify with a higher power, you have a higher consciousness that puts you at peace of mind.
Absolutely.
And then you find that you end up getting abundance through giving and supporting other individuals. So wealth is so much more than money.
Yeah.
Wealth is the spirit. Wealth is health. Wealth is life. Wealth is love. And once you give, it comes back to you like threefold. Well,
I want to talk about your foundation. You defined of who you are in the multifaceted. Let's go to your foundation, your upbringing. How was the childhood, in Buffalo and all that? So explain that.
Phenomenal, man. Buffalo, the Queen. I mean, I wouldn't be who I am today if it wasn't for the town. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. I'm hardly home, but always repping. That's a line that don't necessarily apply, but it sounds good because like now I'm at home. So I come back quite often to stay connected to the town. But I grew up, I went to a bunch of different schools. One of the stories I like to tell most is I went to 4 different high schools.
Wow.
I went to Seneca. I got kicked out my sophomore year, literally kicked out, not taken out, my sophomore year. And then I went to alternative school on Sycamore and Sobieski, a little satellite joint that was like a little church. We were so bad. So I was gonna say when you go to the alternative school, you got to do some things. Got to get that, right? Like it was crazy. And then we were so bad they actually shut that site down, and they moved us to now I believe it's apartment units on Main and Oak. It's not even an alternative school no more. And then I rotated out of that school. That school was crazy. Main and Oak was a beast. And then I went to Bennett High School where I ultimately graduated. But again, all of those trials and tribulations as a child and growing up in the town made me who I am today. So no matter where I go, it's like a certain grit that the town gives you, a certain grind, a certain hustle. So to come back home and see, I was saying to my mom, it literally took us to get from the Curtis where I'm staying at here. It took like 10 minutes to get here. You know what I'm saying? That's what you love about Buffalo, like 10 minutes everywhere. You know what I mean? So just the locale, just so small and so connected. When I walked in, I said, you look so familiar, like it's the town.
Yeah.
When you go elsewhere, when you go to other places like that, it's not the same. So When you grow up in a small town and you know everybody, you can connect with folks.
Yeah.
When you go out of town and you live out of town, it's easy to network and, build with other individuals because you used to having somebody right next door to you.
I love that. So let's talk about your business, and we'll go back into, some of your foundation, but talk about what you currently do, because there's a whole list. I want you to just walk us through that list.
Yeah. So I guess I'll start with the Akil Corporation.
Yeah.
We have to become owners of our names.
Yeah.
We have conversations about systematic racism and oppression, which absolutely exists.
Absolutely.
And there's absolutely opportunity for improvement with capitalism. Definitely. But it's the game that we have to play right now, right?
Yeah.
And when you start differentiating between systematic racism and oppression and capitalism, et cetera, the one thing that the world, the government, U.S. looks at more favorably is corporations. So my corporation is the Akil Corporation. And what we do is we provide products and services that people use every single day that, you grow to love. So the Akil Corporation, we are looking to have event companies, alcohol in our business, spirits. Currently, I have Showcast Media where I have my podcast.
Yeah.
And also my clothing line, Paradise Clothing Company, Escaping the Real World. So that's the corporation that is for profit.
Okay.
But in 2016-ish, we wanted, my wife and I, to do something for the community to give back. And from a for-profit perspective, we created an organization called Equitable Inc. And the goal of Equitable Inc. with our two partners, which is my brother-in-law and my sister-in-law, we went out and we took our intellectual property, which is what's in our head, and then we charged folks a consulting fee to come out and, give them marketing advice, collaboration, education. And my degree is in engineering, and I'm Lean and Six Sigma certified, so I know problem solving from a methodical perspective. But for us, it wasn't enough, right? So how do we give back more, and how do we move further faster? So my wife came home from a consulting job, and she pounded on the table and said, we're going to start a school. Wow. So we were like, okay. I don't know what that means, but I back you. I'm behind you. So we started doing all of our research, and the research showed that oftentimes schools started up as founders of that school, executive directors, et cetera.
Yeah.
And when they got into it, individuals didn't necessarily know to understand that there's a back end to it. Right? Like, you got to take care of the operations. You got to do arrival dismissal. You got to make sure people get their paychecks. Yeah. The school is not necessarily wholly associated with that. So what we did was we started our non-for-profit organization, Equity Now, Inc. Equity Now, Inc. is the nonprofit charter management organization to Legends Charter School. So I am the CEO of Equity Now, Inc., and my wife is the CEO of Legends Charter School. Wow. And our team, we formed like Voltron to create both organizations.
Now, for those who don't understand, so the management company pretty much, explain that, because I know a lot of times with different charter schools, they hire a management company because they could be strong in the curriculum piece, or they could have a board that really just kind of knows the inner structure. But kind of explain the purpose of a management company. Great.
Really good question. So everybody is going to have someone that has a need to do those back end things.
Yeah.
Those opportunities of rival dismissal, operations, technology, et cetera. So when we looked out at the landscape, as opposed to hiring someone to do that, we thought, well, with what we see in the market, we can't do no worse than what everybody else is doing. You know what I mean? So if we get match average, let's go for it. So our team, again, forming like Voltron with our skill sets. Atasha, our CEO of Legends, is a extremely strong educator who's been an educator for the past 20, 30 years. My degree in engineering and business systems and change management and standard operating procedures, we knew that from her background and my background being together, being parallel, having conversations about how engineering and education are very similar in the sense that they call it, they as in academicians, K through 12 education, they call it a school improvement plan. We call it an action plan. It's the same thing.
Different terminology.
It's just different terminology. So she said, okay, you got it. Let's write this up. Our two partners bringing their skills to the table. We created the charter management organization and said, we're going to take care of operations, technology, payroll, development. And all you have to do as the CEO of Legends Charter School is worry about academics. Because at the end of the day, the authorizer, what they care about is, are you educating these children looking at your test scores?
Right.
But the other side to that coin is, do they have a school that has the lights on, that's been cleaned with desks and teachers getting paychecks?
Yeah.
So we had to make sure from that bimodal perspective, it was all taken care of.
I love it, because you look at a lot of charter schools go down because of, the lack of financial accountability in the structure in that system. So
Absolutely.
Which is really important.
And that's one of our accountability goals. It's built into our 9 accountability goals that we have strong fiscal responsibility that is also through our board.
I love it. I want to show our audience that's watching and listening a small clip of Legends Charter School, because I love just what I read about obviously the curriculum and so forth and the management of it. So we're just going to watch a short video from a news feature that was done recently.
Take the money you have, you invest it, and then you watch it work for you.
A path to financial freedom and wealth for everyone who works and learns inside this building.
But that's why, like Amira said, it's important to start early rather than when you're later.
Here at Legends Charter School, which fittingly sits in a corporate office area of Washington, D.C., financial education is comprehensively built into the curriculum and offered to the entire school community.
A payment that is taken out of your bank account. This is your money. This is not anybody else's money. Whose is it? What's the question? What's the answer? What is it?
Every single class in here is named after a stock portfolio.
Shomari James, one of the 4 founding members of Legends, wanted their student body of mostly minority children to get real-life experiences in investing and how money works.
This is the machine that has your money in it. It's hooked up to your bank.
When you have an understanding about money, it changes things. It opens things up for you.
The kids couldn't have better teachers on the subject. Shomari snatched people like Justin DeVoe right out of the financial world, convincing them that helping these kids is their true calling.
So when you start investing, don't get scared or upset because you don't have a lot of money right away.
The kids are extra invested in this class because they can win hundreds of dollars in scholarship money to invest in their own portfolios.
You really need to learn how to invest and grow your money at a young age, and I think that's really good for young kids to learn that.
As it turns out, 5th grader Sincere Turner is really good at investing. He's one of the current students picked to use scholarship dollars to build up his personal portfolio.
This is money that is borrowed. This is
The school uses its resources to help create wealth for the adults as well, who are part of the Legends community.
We know what teacher wages are, so what Justin does is he holds specific classes for just the teachers to come in to be able to talk to them about their finances and financial education as well, so they can feel prepared.
And I love the fact that he also, the financial department, Mr. DeVos also helps the parents as well to save, to start investing in stocks and stuff like that.
A school that's taking investing into one's community to a whole new, exciting level.
transaction.
Kim Martinez reporting.
So that was an awesome clip. I want to jump into a little bit about the charter school as a management company, because I've sat on a few boards of charter schools, and understanding the hiring challenge, especially in African American teachers in the school, and how important it is for children that are served in many Black and brown communities, that the lack of African American presence as a teacher is absent. And I want to talk about how do you deal with that as a management company and hiring for this particular charter school?
Good question. So first off, Amina would gut punch me if I didn't get her credit right out of the gate, because she's the chief of human capital and that's her department. Yeah. And she does an amazing job. So just to give you a little context to it, there are no federal laws for hiring for charter schools, right? So local authorizers is state by state and county by county. Yeah. So in Prince George's County, Maryland, the local authorizer, the teachers are unionized teachers. So technically, they are Prince George's County Public School System teachers in some form or fashion on loan to Legends Charter School.
Gotcha.
But ultimately, Legends Charter School teachers. However, Amina and her team in human capital, what they do is they go to LinkedIn, they go to colleges, they go to career fairs to source teachers, to find the best talent. What makes us unique is we departmentalize, which is Atasha, our CEO, Mrs. James, that's her thought. And what that means, or that's her school design, what that means is every single teacher in our school from kindergarten on teach a single subject. Now, when you and I were in school, that's likely for you. I don't know for you, but it's likely that you had a kindergarten or first grade teacher that taught all your subjects.
Everything, yep.
Right? But when you go to get a tooth pulled or you need a root canal, I think it's called an endodontist. I think you go to an endodontist, right? Because that's their specialty.
Yeah.
So you don't go to a general practitioner to get a root canal because it's not their specialty.
Right.
So what we have with departmentalization, that is CEO James's idea, every single teacher, whatever you teach math, then that means the kids go to your class for math. You teach humanities, you're stone cold at humanities, the kids rotate to your class. Now notice I said rotate.
Yeah.
Because what happens is when you get to middle school, high school, and college, you go from class to class.
Yeah.
We start that in kindergarten.
I love
the
that.
kids switch classes immediately. Now, obviously with COVID, what we did, we had the different teachers push into the classrooms because it was COVID and all the risk with COVID, et cetera. But the point in our departmentalization model is to have expert teachers in front of the kids. So what we do is we go out, Amina, at those career fairs, et cetera, and they look for that talent. I have PhDs that are teaching K through 8 education in my charter school. So we can pull the top talent because we say, listen, as a kindergarten teacher, you don't have to teach reading, math, and science. You're good and you have a master's in science, well, we're going to bring you in and we're going to teach you how to teach. And then you use your knowledge, being stone cold in mathematics or whatever you're good in, to teach it to the children.
Wow, that's so dope, man. That's really dope. What's the statistics of African American teachers within that school?
So the good question. So the national average is like 2 to 4%. I do have to put a slight disclaimer on it. Prince George's County, I believe it goes back and forth with a county in Atlanta, maybe Stone Mountain or something like that.
Okay.
As one of the most concentrated and wealthy places for blacks in America. But with that being said, the national average is 2 to 4%. We have minimally at least 50% black and brown in our school.
Wow.
And the majority of those are males. I didn't have a black male teacher until I got to college.
That's
the
same.
Kindergartners with a black male teacher. So
that's
we're well above the national
That's dope.
average.
Now, how do you, combat the frustrations that many people as a parent, as a community member, and especially, like I said, from a previous board standpoint, is the response of there's not, enough pool of African American teachers getting into the field, which makes it so challenging to find an African American male teacher to come, like you said, at least on the elementary level.
I'm not gonna lie, it's difficult.
Yeah.
But again, we and Amina's team, they do a great job. We source talent.
Yeah.
And then you have to think outside the box. So we're in an area where there's HBCUs, right? So there's Bowie State and there's Howard University, the Howard University. So we'll partner, we'll go to their campuses and we'll have conversations with their education department to be able to bring in those black teachers. But one thing I always say is an organization will tell you a lot. They'll say a lot of different things to you. But if you really want to see what they're committed to, where do they spend their money? And where do they spend their time?
Right.
And we spend our time, money, and energy in finding black teachers. But being on this wave and saying this right now, I also have to say it's not mutually exclusive, right? Just because we look for and source talent from black, BIPOC, black and brown individuals, it doesn't negate white teachers. It doesn't mean that white teachers are no good. Right. We just know that we have a predominantly black population in our school, and we want to push to change the trajectory to get more black teachers in the public school system, because a charter school is a public school, just for clarity for the listeners. Yeah. So we make sure, putting our time, money, and energy, that we go out and we do those out-of-box ideas, like having those conversations, sit-downs, and engagements with HBCUs and career fairs, congressional CBC, things of that nature.
Yeah. I love it, man. You're doing such a great job with that. I mean, your management company and your team, and I think that's is really crucial and important. Before we move on from the charter school, I know that there was some vision to have that in Buffalo. I mean, did you have some challenges trying to start it in your hometown?
Yeah, it's I can't blame it on Buffalo solely. Yeah. There are challenges when you are writing a charter application and applying to an authorizer. So I can't blame the town. When we applied for our charter in Maryland, in Prince George's County, Maryland, we did everything twice. Right. We were originally said, go back and take a look at this. There's a phase in the process called a capacity interview, where they have about 20 to 30 teachers, administrators, et cetera, and they're asking you questions from your charter. They want to know, is this one person's vision and everybody else is just behind you? Yeah. We did that twice. So we didn't get our charter until 6/6 of 2019, and then opened our school in Maryland in 2020. So that's just context to answering the question. So coming to Buffalo, we have a vision that this is hard work. And from a financial education perspective, teaching it to the kids, et cetera, there's a lot of other things that we could have did with our time and money, right? But this is something that we wanted to do and that we want to do. So Buffalo was on the docket for us to apply to. When we applied to Buffalo, we received crazy love from the town. Yeah. I thought we did a good presentation to the board, but ultimately your application goes to New York State. Yeah. So once we applied to New York State, we were in the position where our Buffalo application was in, as well as our Prince George's County application was in. And we were much further along with Prince George's County than we were for Buffalo and New York State. So we literally had a 12 a.m. to 2 a.m. meeting on what we were going to do, what the next steps was going to be. And we received just under $1 million. We received a $900,000 grant from Maryland State Department of Education for innovation for the charter school in Maryland. Wow. So at that point, it made sense for us to pull back and say, hey, we love Buffalo. We're coming home at some point, but it makes sense for us to pull our application and then come back once we get things settled with our K-8 in Maryland. I
love it. Now let's talk about financial education and like why that's so important. And we, just the lack of financial education in our community. And I always tell people the lack of, like, when you go back, when I go back to my own personal childhood and growing up, just not having the conversations about money. The conversation of money is something you just didn't talk about at the family table. People didn't want to, you didn't know how much people made. Everybody was it's a secret. And so you learn it sometimes, at least I can speak for myself at 18, 19, and then you didn't know about credit. And so now I'm learning like, if I would have had that when I was younger, I would be, a lot further. Why is that such an important why is financial education so important in our community?
Oh my goodness. How long do we have? So first, let's say this. The coined phrase is financial literacy. Yeah. Financial literacy for me is the lowest level. Yeah. That does not mean financial literacy isn't good, but when you're literate at something, then that means you can read it, right? Yeah. You understand it. You have some understanding and knowledge of it. We push past financial literacy. Mm-hmm. Working in higher education, there's experiential learning. Yeah. So bringing the concept of experiential learning and combining it with financial literacy, we've coined the term financial education. Mm. So what we're bringing for the positive progression of the culture is the full scope of financial education, which is inclusive of financial literacy, teaching you how to be financially literate. Yeah. But then what do you do? What's next, right? So at a Legend school, K-8 school, beginning in kindergarten, we fostered a relationship so all of our students have the opportunity to invest in the livestock market. So we teach them the concepts, We test for competency. We allow them to do a simulation. They do a March Market Madness challenge where they open up brokerage accounts.
Wow.
And then they go in and with the simulation and investing in the live stock market.
Now, before you go on, I want to talk about, like, when you introduce that to a community that may not hear that. Now, when I'm listening to you, I'm like, that is so dope.
Yeah.
Like, what's the reaction when you say, you're trying, especially when you're trying to introduce something new that people are not used to? When you talk about stocks, you're like, I don't even know about that. There's some, like I said, I just learned maybe 5 years ago.
Yep.
So, like, what responses are you getting from parents in the community when you say this is what we want to bring to the table? Really
good question, and it's a broad spectrum.
Yeah.
Right? So, my personal experience is that when you were saying about money at the dinner table, etc.
Yeah.
I heard my mom would say, I have champagne taste in beer pockets. So for me, that was motivation. I had to get champagne. Since I had champagne taste, I needed to get champagne pockets, right? I had to get there. My mom was heavily interested or making moves with real estate. So I ultimately moved into real estate, started doing real estate, and then jumped into the stock market, right?
Wow.
So my fundamental belief was that, again, with this systematic racism and oppression and wanting to ensure that the culture is not getting this information, it's made to be so super complex when it's really not. You're talking trades and options and candlestick charts and all of that. What we do is we say, do 3 things.
Yeah.
Open an account, fund an account, and then buy a stock. The easiest thing to do is just call your bank and see if they have a brokerage tied to it. Bank of America is Merrill Edge. TD Bank is TD Ameritrade. None of them pay me, but they need to start paying me. They need to do more podcasts, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
So that's open an account.
Yeah.
Then you fund the account. When you fund the account, you're taking money out of your bank account and you're putting it into your brokerage account to prepare to buy a stock. Now, here's where things get thick and folks start to say it's murky.
Right.
Now you have to do your research to actually open fund, purchase a stock.
Yeah.
What kind of phone do you use?
iPhone.
Do you have a laptop?
Yes.
What kind of laptop is it?
iPhone or Apple.
It's a Mac, right?
Yep.
So right now you're a consumer.
Yep.
So how do we go from you being a consumer to a producer and an owner? You're already invested in it. So why are we, not to you, but to the communities, why are you saying that this is very difficult when you already own earbuds, you own an iPhone, you own a MacBook, you own an iPad, you're already purchasing it. So instead of buying that next product, buy the stock. And guess what? That stock gives you a dividend. What's a dividend? A dividend is money they're going to give you back because you bought the stock to buy your next iPhone. We don't have to make this very difficult. So when we have those conversations, we keep it in the most simple terms, but it's very clear to explain to people there's a difference between simple and easy.
Right.
It's not an easy path to wealth building, but there's very simple steps if you follow it. What kind of car do you drive? What type of refrigerator is in your home? I'm using myself as a bad example. I have a Louis Vuitton book bag, suitcase, and shoes.
Right.
But I don't own LVMH, right? So good Gemini is like, you're doing well. You got all this Louis on. Bad Gemini is like, why are you not buying the stock? And that's what we teach the parents. Take a look at what's in your household already. Roblox IPO, a ton of my kids in the school bought Roblox and came up off of it. So the idea is to just break it down that it's simple, not easy, because there's a difference, and then make it good for you to be able to consume, understand, and then go out there and just get it.
Wow. I definitely love that concept. The one is I definitely would commend you on starting that at an early age, because like I said and earlier is that how important it is to start it young and you learn, having conversations about stocks and bonds and so forth is just like you kind of like seeding it and then, people learning from it. How do you balance, I guess, let me retract this. How do you change the culture? And you talked a little bit about this, like sometimes, when we get money, first taste of money, I'm speaking for myself, is you go buy the stuff. You want to look like you got money.
No doubt.
And then you go through a phase like, okay, now I need to invest. I mean, it's one thing to look like you got money, but then to be broke. And I was reading some statistic, and I know like the wealth is going to be going down. I think I forgot the year 2045. The wealth is going down for African Americans almost to 0%. How do we change that? The mindsets, and also just how our African community feel about money in itself and embracing it.
Not swimming against the current.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to teach young men and women to do something that I want them to do by going against their natural inclinations to do something differently.
Yeah.
So how can I convince you for us to turn and swim downstream so it's pushing at the back?
Right.
I am of the mindset, I like my gold.
Yep.
I like my Louis. I'm not necessarily where I want to be.
Right.
But if we can collectively understand the mindset of pay yourself first, it's okay. If you want to go to the club and pop a bottle, if you want to buy a gold chain, you want to buy a Gucci belt, there's levels to this, right?
Right. Yeah.
Did you pay yourself first with that paycheck? Because when you understand the concept of compounding, money making money for itself, and then you understand that if you want that BMW or you want that Gucci belt, buy a stock that's going to give you a return where you're able to buy that Gucci belt and your investment paid for it.
Wow.
So my approach is not to come at young people and say, yo, stop buying bottles. All of y'all go in and live with one another.
Yeah.
Live completely super underneath your means. Take your paycheck and only, because it's not going to work.
Right.
We got to
It's
be
not
realistic.
Right.
It got to be realistic. Plus, they're going to see me out with probably my gold fronts.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? My gold on and my diamonds on and say, what are you doing too? Right. So if I got to walk it, if I'm going to talk it, I got to walk it. Right. So what I have as far as conversations are with young people to say, listen, let's be practical about this.
Right.
If you go out, you know, and I'm using, I don't know why the bottle, the club, I don't even do clubs anymore. But if you go out, you know that they paid $40 for that bottle of Moet and you're paying $250 for it.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say don't go out, right?
Right.
But if you go out with 5 friends, 7 friends, whatever the case may be, and y'all go to the bar and y'all spend $400 on drinks, well, you could have went and bought that bottle and had a VIP and saved some money, and that money that you saved, put it into your stock account.
Right.
I'm not stopping you from going to the club. I'm not stopping you from buying a bottle, but I'm telling you, keep in mind, pay yourself first and don't go overboard.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So you got to have the conversations with individuals. I credit in my life my mom again. So she would put, when I was in college, she would literally come to my house. She had keys to my house because it was technically her house, even though she told me it was my house. And she would put the salary of an engineer up on the wall or on my refrigerator, right? $50,000, $70,000, $100,000 is what they make. So my mom was my rocks.
Yeah.
Slow and steady wins the race. This is what you need to do. My dad was that wild card. He was like, it don't matter how you get it, boy. Go hustle, go grind, go get it.
Yeah.
Then there was my father-in-law who said, hey, listen, if you are going to get it, this is what you can do with it. Here's a house with an elevator in it. And then Roger, my mentor, who was father-like for me after my dad passed away, said, here's another way you can get it. So I had to have my mind open to, listen, Mom, slow and steady wins the race. Stack your bread. Long-term investing.
Right.
Make sure you got it. My father-in-law, don't ever get off your, my father, don't get off your grind. Make sure you keep grinding. Make sure you keep, if it's compounding and slow, you keep at
going,
it.
right.
My father-in-law, okay, well, now you came up a little bit. You grab these shoes or grab this.
Go enjoy yourself, yeah.
Enjoy yourself. But also your network is your net worth.
Yeah.
And somebody high dollar value going to look at that watch and may have a conversation with you.
Right.
And then my mentor said, well, now that you made this money this way, let me show you how to invest it in the market and make money while you sleep. So that was instrumental in my life and how we were able to take financial literacy and transform it and bring it into the school as a curriculum for financial education, because we are a product of our experiences.
Absolutely. I want to talk about the ingredients, because I think when people think of entrepreneurs, you know, they think it's just this easy thing, and they think that you can also just have some method, like 1, 2, 3. Like if I figure out, you know, or do some research and say, okay, how did you do this? 1, 2, 3. It doesn't work that way. What do you credit? You talked a little bit about your foundation and your family. What do you credit the path that where you are now? Like, you know, if an entrepreneur is listening right now, like, what do you think are some key things that are crucial to where you gotten so far?
Good question, and that's why I love that I'm in the education space, because I've been an entrepreneur and had grit and a go-getter since I came out the womb. And as a young black male who had curly hair, light brown in school, the traditional public school system, that just didn't work. You know what I mean? I didn't want to sit in class. I didn't want to sit still, right? But that was something in me that it took to my senior year in high school, a white female cross-country coach, all of which I didn't identify with, but seen something in me and said, change your trajectory to do the positive things that you want to do in your life. Wow. So for me, looking back and where I am today, one of the things I would say is to have grit. Yeah. 2 is to have the confidence that you're not going to fail. And if you do fail, you fail forward. Everything that I've done in my entire life hasn't always been perfect, but I don't allow perfect to be the enemy to good. And then if I get it to good, I bet you I can get it to great. Yeah. And then that third thing is entrepreneurs have the good entrepreneurs, those that go leaps and bounds and press forward, this ability to, when you say, like, as an entrepreneur, have you done, because a business plan, they ask you for a market analysis, right? Right. Really stone cold entrepreneurs, they're not doing a market analysis because it doesn't matter what the market say. They're giving you something that you don't even know you need yet, right? Think about Tim Cook, right? Think about Steve Jobs. Think about Apple. Think about the iPhone. I'm a Samsung user. I'm Droid all day. But
you Droid, man? Okay.
You know what I'm saying? But whoever wanted to talk to people face to face on a phone before Steve Jobs said you're going to talk to people face to face on a phone? What market analysis did he do to come up with that?
That's so true. That's so true.
It didn't exist. So as an entrepreneur, you got to understand that with that grit that you have, you got to take chances. And if you don't take those chances, scared money don't make money. And it's not always about money, but it comes to that sometimes. So as an entrepreneur, you have to bet on yourself. You have to go. And then I think the last thing to sum all of that up would be, as an entrepreneur, you got to know and understand how to delegate and build a team. Yeah. But the nuance to that is you cannot expect individuals to be able to clearly see the vision that God gave you.
Wow. That's
so you got to make sure that you're the orchestrator, you're directing, and never get upset because God gave you that vision. They didn't give it to everybody else. So it's going to be some troubling times.
Some really great points. I want to talk about, like, the wise counsel. I believe in the ensuring that your circle is tight and that you have wise counsel and advisement. Is that an important component to being successful?
Absolutely. So the first book I read was Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I thought it was the best book ever until I read Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich. Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich, it changed my life. Yeah. The Mastermind group is what you're talking about. Is so uber important. Yes. Your network is your net worth. Yeah. What I say oftentimes when I'm out speaking podcasts, et cetera, is a rising tide raises all ships. I don't ever want to be in a circle where I am the smartest, the fastest, the strongest, and making the most money. Absolutely. Because
you're in the wrong room.
I'm in the wrong room. And I'm not learning and I'm not growing.
Absolutely.
But individuals get into a room and they see someone ahead of them, and they get uncomfortable and maybe leave the room. Yeah. I'm okay with a good level of uncomfort because then I know that I'm growing. Yeah. So I can look to the left and I can see, okay, there's some folks that I got them a little bit. I'm a little up on them folks. Yeah. And then I can look to my right and there's some folks way beyond me doing some big things. And for me, I think my superpower is individuals gravitate to me. We have conversations. And then I'm a connector. So how can I get you connected with the person that I know so then we can all make money together? Because I fundamentally believe in, if you have a piece, you have a piece, and I have a piece, right? Those pieces might be worth X amount. But if we put them all together and we create one pie, then we can all eat off of that one pie, which will be bigger than what I'm eating this one slice on my own. So the mastermind group is key. The other thing to it is they keep you humble.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So my mom, Roger, my mentor, my wife, and even my children. They say, Shomari, yeah, you're doing good. We're doing really good. I give you an example. I received a raise. I went from one job to the other.
Mm-hmm.
I called Roger, and they literally doubled my salary, and I was already making 6 figures. They doubled it. I'm excited. I'm like, Raj, I already talked to my mom, and everybody else like, yo, my Dukes is like, that's good. Okay, that's good. What's next? What you thinking about? I'm like, okay, we're going to do this, this, and this. I called Raj. Raj was like, so that's really good. And paused. How? I was like, hello? What next? Hello, Raj? He like, listen. He said, if your job cut you today and cut that doubled 6-figure salary, could you sustain for 6 months? And I had to pause and think about that.
Wow.
He said, if you were able to put $1 million in the bank, do you call yourself a millionaire? Because if you paying your mortgage, your light bill, your cell phone bill, and your gas bill off of that $1 million, you're not a millionaire.
Wow.
You're just making it.
Yep.
Right? So having those individuals in your circle that can press you and push you to make sure that you're at your best is extremely important. I call that the mastermind group.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, I think that's a really crucial piece of any successful person. I want to talk about the kind of drawing a blank.
No worries.
The mindset that you have as far as when you walk into, I guess, the humility part of understanding, like you just said, when you walk into a room and you see people at a place that you may want to go to, and the pride I've seen a lot. So I was having this conversation with a few entrepreneurs a few weeks ago, and being humble enough, one, is to go to other people and ask for help, and to learn from them. And I guess how does one develop that skill? Because one, you want to be, okay, I got this, I know this, but then to walk up to someone like you and say, hey man, I love what you're doing, I want to learn from you. That's, a lot of people can't do that.
Really good question. So I was just a presenter at South by Southwest in Austin, Texas, and this young man talking about entrepreneurs and education. And this young man who was in college, he walked up to me and he said, I really enjoyed your speech, and I just wanted to come up, and I kind of don't really have anything else. I just thought it was great. I appreciate it. I gave him my card. I said, I matriculated through college. I'm a black male, as you are. I'm handing you my card. I hand out my business card all of the time.
Right.
I probably get phone calls back or a text or email back maybe 20% of the time. If I'm giving you my card, that means call me. Right. Even if you don't even know what to say, I wanted to check in with you. I'm having a really tough semester. That right there is a conversation starter because I've been in school.
Yeah.
So in answering the question, part of it is building that capability and that capacity up in our people to tell them, thank you for coming up to me, but you need to hold yourself accountable to hit me up. The other side, the B side to that tape is I need to say to that person, I'm giving you my car and I truly want you to call me. I want you to hit me up so I can be helpful. So I'm going to be open. The other answer, because it's a 3-part for me, is I teach Lean and Six Sigma again, which is problem-solving methodology. And there's something in Lean Six Sigma methodology, problem-solving methodology, that's called Hansai and Yuki.
Okay.
Hansai is humility. Yuki is courage. And they're like the yin and the yang, right? So you have to have the courage to speak up, the Yuki to speak up, with Hansai, the humility, right? So you got to be prepared to say something when you see something, and to speak up and speak out, but learn how to say it with humility. The third answer is off of that is I've had Yuki my whole life. I had to learn how to have hindsight. I had to it's a whole nother podcast when you start talking about arrogant, overconfident black males. I believe that we as black males, our level of confidence that we have, if it's above a certain bar with systematic racism and oppression, we're automatically deemed as arrogant because there's a place for us. So when you have a high level of confidence and you walk into a room and you have presence as a black man, society, systematic racism and oppression is like, this dude ain't supposed to be this confident.
Exactly.
I don't care what room I walk into with Jay-Z Warren Buffett, Robert F. Smith, I belong there. If I'm in the room, I belong there. I'm talking, I'm saying something. I never met a microphone and a camera that I didn't like, and we gonna have this conversation because at the end of the day, I'm from the town. I'm from Buffalo, and the things that I've been through, they not gonna happen in this room.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? So that's my 3-part answer to that.
I love that. I love it. I want to transition to like talking about value, and you do this obviously starting a nonprofit and so forth. Is how important is that? Because I another thing, a conversation I had a few weeks ago is not always trying to make a sell. And usually when you're in rooms, people are always trying to sell you something. And before, I come up to you and here's what I'm selling, here's what I'm doing, instead of adding value first.
Yep.
How important is that for anyone, inspiring to be an entrepreneur or already an entrepreneur, of giving value first to other people?
No doubt. So for me, that's a two-part answer as well. So value is what the individual on the other side of the table is willing to either pay for or engage in.
Yeah.
Right. So I can't necessarily dictate the value for you.
Right.
You are the voice of the customer. So I have to step outside myself humbly and say, what are you looking for? Right. That is going to be value for me, because what I'm bringing to the table, you might not necessarily value.
Right.
So we have to have a conversation so I see what you actually value before I try to sell you something. And then what goes right along with that is it's not about raising dollars and selling you something. It's about developing a relationship.
Yeah.
Right. So what I'm going to do, we just met, we doing this podcast.
Yeah.
I'm going to connect you with every single person that I know that does podcasts. Right. Yeah. That's the value for you now that we've engaged, and I don't need to get anything out of it. Right. I don't want or need anything from you. But again, a rising tide raises all ships.
Yeah.
So we have to think about it from the perspective of how can I grow my network? So now that we had this podcast, how could we stay in touch once a month, once a quarter, to keep connecting? You come to DC area, you hit me up like, yo, I'm in town. I want to do this podcast. Now I connect you with a studio in DC. Now y'all connect, and I didn't necessarily sell you anything, but maybe they do, or maybe you do to them, because the value is in the relationship.
Right.
The value is in me being able to pick up the phone and say, yo, I'm flying into Buffalo. I just thought about this podcast I want to have. Would you be willing to do it? Yeah, and I ain't going to charge you nothing. Shomari, we had we connected, boom. That's value.
Yeah.
So it's not always an exchange. It's not always transactional for dollars. You know what I mean?
Now, how do you teach that? Because I think sometimes even like if you're going entrepreneur, you're just starting off. So, if I come in contact in your circle, it's like the first thing is I got to get money. I'm trying to be, I'm trying to be in this game. I'm trying to hustle. And sometimes you're taught, because I had to actually unlearn this, when I go in network places, it's like, okay, this is really about relationship piece. This is the key, because when you build, like you just said, the relationship with so many people, adding value and exchanging, and it's not all, like you said, it's not just trying to get something out of someone. So how do you teach that? Because I think some mindsets that people see is like, okay, I get in a room full of people, the first thing I'm thinking about is how do I build this capital up?
Yeah. So it's a nuance.
Yeah.
It is an extreme nuance. An older mentor of mine told me when I was out doing a multitude of things and networking, what's your bread and butter?
Yeah.
Right. So what is your bread and butter business that adds income into your pocket to pay for food on the table?
Yeah.
Right. So let's say you work a 9 to 5 and that's what brings you the dollars.
Yeah.
Well, if you have your 9 to 5 and that 9 to 5 does not involve you selling anything to anyone, well, then your 5 to 9 should be growing relationships, right? So now you're building those relationships because you eating off your 9 to 5.
Yeah.
That 5 to 9, when you're building those relationships, they might be 6 months, a year, 5 years, or 10 years out, you reap the benefits, but you're growing those relationships. Now, the other side of that coin, right, the B side to the tape is you may need to eat, right?
Yep.
So now you have to determine when you're in that room, how do you differentiate and find who is it that is going to be a transactional conversation where I'm having this conversation with this individual and I need to build with them,
right?
Or I'm probably not going to be able to build with this individual, so let me just try and I don't even want to say just because that seems a little sarcastic. I'm going to switch to my sell mode, right? Because they seem more interested in the product or the service that I'm offering. Yeah. So you teach that by individuals by bringing them along and having those conversations and being in rooms where you network. Oftentimes, the biggest deals aren't sitting across from the table and saying, here's my proposal and my contract. Will you spend $20,000 on me? It doesn't typically happen like that, right? It's, here's my business card. What do? You have the conversation. And then a week, a month, 6 months, a year, 10 years later,
all comes together.
They say, hey, my buddy is in this space who I met with that does X, Y, and Z. I'm going to call him and y'all connect. You know what I mean? Yeah. So find that bread and butter. And if you have a 9 to 5, build those relationships on your 5 to 9. If you eat what you kill, which oftentimes individuals do, right?
Yeah.
Some of those folks in insurance, some of folks in real estate, you know what I mean? Selling houses, development, et cetera. But then you got to find out, is this a transactional relationship because they're interested in this, or am I going to build with this person?
Wow. So one of the last few questions I want to ask you is boundaries, in the context of knowing what your purpose is and how do I stay locked in with everything going on with family, other responsibilities, other people around you. I guess, the question I have for you is how did you stay locked in to ensure like you stayed focused on the plan?
Ooh, really,
because that's tough. That could be
really
tough.
Good question. That is difficult to answer. So my answer is not a generic answer. Yeah. It is specific to me.
Yeah.
So I have coming up, when I was doing real estate, I was known to my family predominantly through my mom as one who knows how to invest and buy real estate and go after real estate.
Yeah.
Because I focused on that as my bread and butter. Then when I did 10 years at UPS, I found that I was doing problem solving and I wasn't solid enough in the market. So I went and I got my Lean Six Sigma certification. I then switched from real estate to investing in the stock market. And then I became known as the stock guy who's going to break it down. Wow. Then I started doing deals once I got locked in with my investments, able to do real estate deals. So I think I'm a serial entrepreneur. So what happens is for me is I build my ecosystem around me with my mastermind group, and I stay locked in on this is the main focus, right? So the saying is, with no disrespect to Dr. Martin Luther King, keep your eyes on the prize.
Yeah.
I believe keep your eyes on the pathway to the prize, right? Because the pathway, I may go one way, you may go another way, right? But ultimately, we're going after that same prize. So what I do is I stay locked in on what it is at the moment, right? Yeah. And within my ecosystem, don't be upset with me if me and wifey aren't going out with you like we used to, because we spent literally 2 years in the basement grinding on a charter application.
Wow. Yeah.
So I'm not going out. I'm not going to the festival. I'm not going to the concert. Yeah. I'm not going out drinking. I'm in the basement. I need a haircut.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I look crazy, and this is what I got to do.
Yeah.
Right? So now I'm in a position where, okay, I'm out the basement. We got the school open. We good. Now what are you working on? Now it's my time to share my story.
Yeah.
And now putting my story out there, I'm hyper focused on me getting my story out, because if somebody could look at me from the town, I'm from Buffalo, New York, grew up humble. If I can do it, you can do it as well. So the answer to that is there's always going to be distractions, but you got to keep your eyes on the pathway to the prize, because those pathways may shift and you just keep out the noise.
Wow. I love that. I love that advice. So how, or maybe what's the next step for you in your vision, maybe the next 2 to 3 years? What do you got in the works, without maybe giving specifics, but.
Yeah, no doubt. I ultimately, again, as I just said, I want to be an inspiration to those who look like me, those who grew up like me. I'm really tired of the I don't want to fire no shots at any specific network, but you know, those networks, they have those stories. We found this black kid who father was on drugs and mother barely came home, and somebody came in and gave him some money, and now I want every single black and brown kid family to be born with a platinum spoon in their mouth, silver spoon in their mouth, gold in their mouth. When we were growing up, I'm imagining we're somewhat around the same age. We didn't have Instagram, right? But when we aspired for wealth, we seen ball players, rappers, entertainers, etc. Right? So now when you hear about wealth, it's like this negative connotation to it, even though the culture has become really fixated on getting to the bag, which is crazy to me because when we weren't thinking about it, systematic and racism and oppression wasn't talking about it, right? We know capitalism has opportunities for improvement and has hurt us, just like systematic racism and oppression. But this is a time right now where we need to teach every single individual who look like you and me to go get the bag and be a good human being. My goal is to amass as much money as humanly possible, whether multi-millions, billions, or trillionaire, give as much of it away as I can and give as much knowledge as I can. So in the next 2 to 3 years, my goal is to have my company, Showcast Media, which is going to be a media company to produce podcasts, to have different types of podcasts and information, to continue my work with Equity Now and our FinEd, which financial education, to debunk all of this craziness about it's bad to be rich, right? So I want individuals who look like you and I to say it's okay to be rich, wealthy, and a good person. So that's the work that I'm doing over the next 2 to 3 years, growing these companies.
It's so dope what you're doing, man. I shout out to Raquel Hall too, and she kind of connected me, to us. And that's why I said, even from this podcast, you talked about this, is just having a platform for black and brown individuals, because sometimes we even limit ourselves, and sometimes, just like you said, different networks limit what they want to show. And I believe we have a spectrum of different African American and just overall black and brown people. There is a spectrum of professionals in the field. It's just not limited to the athletes, not to producers, rappers, whatever the case may be. And to see and hear what you're doing out in the community. And so when I did my research on you, I was like, definitely got to have you on here. And just like I said, just reading about you and the things that you're doing. And beyond reading about you, what I love about everyone who I have brought onto the show is I see a trend of entrepreneurs and business owners is the heart to give back. It's just not about building me and my family, but my community. Absolutely. I want to see my community live. And it's really about networking and building, like you just said, our community together. And we really need that. And especially with the financial education, which is so crucial. And I'm glad that you're doing that. And hopefully we'll see you in Buffalo a couple of years with that, because we definitely need that here. So any last words, man? Yeah, I know we were kind of like on a little professional and serious level. I mean, so what do you do with fun before I let you end with a note that you want to add to it? But what do you do for fun? What's the release?
So good question. My son is 21, as I mentioned. My daughter is 17, so she'll sneak out with us sometimes. But I'm a really big family person. Yeah, we have 2 houses. We call it the compound. So anytime we go out, it's 10 to 20 of us. Yeah. Because it's literally 2 households next to one another. So we like to go out. We have a huge photo shoot that we do for Thanksgiving, and then we release it in December. A lot of family events. I come home often, spend time with my mom, who I'm trying to convince to move to Maryland. We're working on buying 10 acres of land, and we're going to build like 6-7 houses on that land. So one fun for me is helping individuals grow their business. To release and let loose. I've been with my wife probably 30 years. We met in high school.
Wow, that's dope.
So people say, how do you guys keep it going? We remain friends. Not just communication, because with communication, you also have to comprehend each other. Yep. And we have fun. We are like a couple that just got married. We literally on a Thursday night with our old selves was at the Snow Allegra concert. You know what I'm saying? Like, so for fun, we get out. You know what I mean? And you got to let your hair down, because Mental health is a big thing.
Absolutely, yeah.
I wouldn't call it fun, but I also have a personal trainer and a gym membership, and I get out and make sure that I'm working out. I'm not the buffest, the strongest ever, but got to make sure I'm
all of that helps, man.
Absolutely.
Just like that balance and that mental health is really crucial.
Absolutely.
And to have that balance, because if you're just focusing in on the purpose without enjoying it and having that balance, like you just talked about, and it's a really good thing. So before I cut you off, you were saying some last words.
Great question, though. This is really hard work in the education space. And then it's exponentially more difficult when you start talking about public charter schools because of the history of some for-profit charter schools that were bad actors in the space.
Yeah.
Saying that to say, my ask is, if you are for education in America, don't pick and choose whether you're for traditional public charter or private. If you're for education for Black kids, then you should be for all pathways for our Black kids to be educated.
Yeah.
So I say that to say that reach out to us, have a conversation, network, learn more about our organization. We're at equitynowinc.org. That's Inc with an INC. And just find out the things that we're doing. And for me, shoot us an email and say, we researched you and we've seen that you're doing some great work. Write us a letter or donate if you want to, because we also take donations. But this is tough work. And to just have allies in the work is enough for us.
It is. It's definitely, like I said, from an education standpoint, being a board member for a few years and just seeing the challenges of education and some of the bureaucracy and all of that stuff involved. It's a serious thing. And I'm glad to see that you guys made it through the application process, the grilling that happens trying to get authorized, which is necessary when you talk about the education importance of it. So I commend you on going through that challenge or that experience as well. And like I said, I can't wait to see it in Buffalo. And so appreciate you coming in.
Thank you.
For our episode number 24, Locked In. So listen, if you again listening, watching us, make sure you like, share the podcast and the importance of sharing value to other people. So again, our purpose is to inspire, encourage, uplift other entrepreneurs that's in the game every day. We need to encourage each other. And so till next time, see you next week.
Did you know that Empower716 Talk Show is looking to promote and recognize young entrepreneurs in Western New York? You could recommend yourself or someone else to be acknowledged on a future episode. Nominees need to be age 21 or under, has a service or product that offers value, has taken steps to become an entrepreneur, and must be willing to come on the show and talk about their service or product if selected. Email us at empower716@gmail.com.